Hey, this is Pops. Going to talk to you about Black Mirror Season 6, Episode 3, Beyond the Sea, an all star cast. Give you my thoughts, give my evaluation. And again, please be kind. I haven't watched all this Black Mirror, so I'm kind of a noob, but this is my take. All right, Black Mirror. What can I say? What can I say about Beyond the Sea? The cast is amazing. Aaron Paul, Josh Hartnett, Kate Mara, as I said, do an amazing job. It's just an odd alternate future or alternate history, if you will, with the space program, where you have two individuals that are on a mission, multi years, but they have a way to do like that. The movie Surrogates with Bruce Willis, where they're able to interface their intellect and consciousness into an android of some kind here on Earth and live out a life with their family. And that ultimately goes sideways with like sort of like a Clockwork Orange slash I don't know, Charles Manson sort of scene or something. It's pretty brutal. And then the consequences of that, the mental illness that comes with that, and then it kind of lends itself to another twist and yet kind of another twist. So I thought the concept I thought was fine. And the execution, of course, is great. The cast is phenomenal. Again, some of the moral dilemma that they're trying to create on the show and how it's supposed to be very very small. It's supposed to always you always end up in these situations where you're supposed to be thinking in a very binary way. It's either choose your own adventure. It's option A or option B. And a lot of times my problem with the show is my brain is like understanding the concept of, well, if I'm in the space program and I'm able to do this, then how come there's not communication to do this, and how come there's not this option, how come there's not that option? And I always think my brain, I'm having a hard time with the show because it's trying to force me into a binary option when I'm like, it's clear that there would be other options, or at least other options that we're not seeing on screen that aren't being addressed. Maybe that's a better way to say it too. I will say that I like the juxtaposition of two approaches to their surrogate life. Like one is leading a very sterile, robotic life in the country, devoid of sort of technology, and a very cold and callous approach to dealing with his family, the Aaron Paul version, versus the John Hartnett, which is very much into emotions and connections, being creative through his art, and then a physical relationship with his earthly spouse. Then would be it's interesting to say, well, what would happen if two people were stuck and yet one had befallen a tragedy? So and that's kind of the interesting elements of what would happen in that. So there's a lot of other elements though that would probably come into play. And this is a very we end up just sort of ignoring the grayness of that path and that road. So anyway, that's my general take on the episode. Let me pull it up for you. Let's go through a few of the scenes, a couple of shots, see what else jars my memory and thought processes. All right, as you can see, Beyond the Sea. We start off with just that Josh Hartnett version versus the Aaron Paul lifestyle. And this was an interesting scene that you don't totally get. I have to be honest. I was kind of like not getting the scene where he's being confronted while they're out in public, and there's sort of like a disdain for someone recognizing them and sort of knowing who they are. And I will be honest, I'm not sure I recognize Josh Hartnett in some of these early scenes. You get it in hindsight, it's totally him. There's not even like a doubt, but it's just I don't know, the style of his hair and clean shaven, things like that. And then of course he has a massive transformation later on in the episode. So, and that's pretty much some just general character. Like I said, there's the contradiction of how he approaches his lifestyle versus the Aaron Paul character, and then of course we have our interface to the spacecraft where they are, and you see what they look like in sort of like the real world, the real life. And then we have sort of like the concept of the mission, which in hindsight didn't seem to matter that much, other than we had to create a scenario that would constrain ourselves to why we would need two individuals. They couldn't do this on their own. That also seems somewhat implausible. Like it seems very strange that we would have something with just two people on such a long mission. Like what would happen if just someone just died and had a heart attack or had an allergic reaction or something like that, or there was an accident? It seems very irresponsible of the space program to hitch all their wagons. And we also don't get a good perspective of what the real mission is here. Um, so that's again, there's just setup, and then we end up with this sort of like Sharon Tate style attack sequence where they basically they find out who he is and what he is, and then they basically attack and take care of him and his family in just graphic manner. Um, I also can say I didn't know exactly how long the episode was going to be, so it was kind of a very strange situation to know how to deal with all that. And then just the moral journey that he's on, this deterioration of his well-being is interesting. Um, we aren't really given timestamps, so we don't really know how long it's been. We just know it has been a while. And then the idea that there would be an offer to allow him to experience some sort of humanity, which I thought was weird because he's just going to allow himself to be that close to his wife and not be like, can you just take him somewhere and leave him and allow him to experience, when it's in fact what he ends up doing is just he starts bonding to Kate Mara's character. So even though this is Aaron Paul, this is the Josh Hartnett character in the Aaron Paul surrogate, living out life, rediscovering life, melting down, finding, you know, being consoled because of his loss and his grief and that kind of thing. And then ultimately, because of their differences, he ends up with this concept of drawing and ends up leading towards, there's this art that he has where he has drawn nudes of her. He's basically fantasizing. He's trying to live some sort of life. And they're bonding by going to the town and the books, and there's all sorts of different elements that kind of play up. Again, this dichotomy all comes down to this moment, right? So he's going to try to be who he really is, make his move on her. And when she rejects him, it's sort of like it starts creating even more emotional conflict between, the real couple. And then you end up with the big twist of, who's going to go back and why and what's going to happen. Before you get to the final twist. And I don't know that I should spoil that part for you guys, so that you guys have something to hang your hat on. Listen, I can just tell you that I had a good time. It's I don't know that I would rewatch this one. I can say that I enjoyed it. Fair enough. Yeah. So of the three, this one's still fine, very solid. Definitely enjoyed it. Wouldn't be one that I would turn my nose up to if I had to watch it again or something like that. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I'm not gonna. I can't see myself really going out of my way to watch this one again. I have to admit, the first episode of season 6, the Joan is awful one, is one that I will want to watch again. Because the more I pondered that one, the more I kind of think about some interesting takes on that one. So that's kind of where I'm at. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this show. Hope you are enjoying my analysis on it. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts if you guys are watching or taking it in. Thanks so much for watching. I am Pops.